Hello and welcome back to Down to the Tyre. Today I'm joined by a driver who only started karting last year, but is now part of a record-breaking GB4 grid. As part of the biggest grid the championship has ever seen, this driver competes for Fox Motorsport in her first ever season of car racing. I'm of course talking about Caitlyn McDaniel, so I hope you enjoy the episode.
You began karting only a year ago, I believe, in the Jamie Chadwick series. What actually inspired you to take up motorsport in the first place? And how do you think your experience in go-karts shaped you into the driver you are today?
So yeah, it was definitely very like a sudden progression going from I think I did like 4 rounds of Jamie Chadwick series last year to GB4 this year. So it's been such a big jump. But yeah, I think karting definitely gave me a good foundation to see like where I was in terms of my racecraft and everything. And that's something that I need to improve on in GB4. But yeah, I started karting a year ago, just like for fun, kind of like it was something I've wanted to do since I was around 8 years old. And I had the time to do it. And my parents were like, well, let's just go to like a rental track for a day. And I went and then I loved it. And then I just kept going. And I only competed in like half of the Jamie Chadwick rounds. And then I started testing the GB4 car. And I think it's not the best foundation compared to what some of the other people have in GB4, because I feel like a lot of people in GB4 have so much karting experience. So it's very interesting to go from rental karting and it's like completely different to straight into cars. But yeah, I definitely gave me the feel for like how I guess hard the competition is in the UK. Like even at a rental level, it's still incredibly like competitive. So yeah.
When you were 8 years old and you first kind of discovered karting as a concept and you wanted to give it a go back then, what was it that made you want to try it? What was kind of your first exposure to it?
So I feel like this is quite an obvious one, but the movie Cars, because no
Classic.
one in my it's classic. Everything starts from that movie. But no one in my family raced, except like my grandfather did a little bit of drag racing, but so I'm not really like didn't come from like a motorsport heavy family. So I watched that movie and I fell in love with that movie and I just thought it was super cool. So I started like casually watching like NASCAR, mainly like stock races because America, a little bit IndyCar and then Formula One a bit. But yeah, I just was a watcher when I was younger. And then I saw I think it was like an amusement park. They had like a little go-kart track. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like I have to do it. And we were getting ready to leave. My mom was like, okay, we'll go check it out. So we went there and I remember I was like, I think I was too short or I was like, I didn't fit in the go-kart. So they told me I couldn't go out. And I was so upset. And then I remember my friend and I, we were just obsessed from then on out, like him and I, like we were just obsessed with karting and everything, but we just never were able to pursue it when we were younger. But yeah,
I guess being short, that
it's
racing cars is an advantage.
yeah, like jumping from rental karting to racing cars. Like obviously I prefer cars. It's so much more fun. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to me that it's kind of always been there. But I only started racing like around almost exactly a year ago. So a little over a year ago. So it's kind of crazy that like the passion's always been there, but I've only been doing it for such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that is crazy. It's really impressive as well that you obviously have got to the point of GB4 in such a short space of time. And I believe you were called up quite last minute to do this GB4 season. I was wondering if you could explain a bit more about the process of how you kind of found out you would be racing this year, because I feel like you only found out just before the Donington round actually happened.
Yeah, it was such a jump. My parents weren't even there because I was 17 at the time, and my parents weren't even there. Like they were out of the country, and I was up in Donington testing for the Thursday and Friday test beforehand. And I mean, I wasn't planning on competing in general. Like I was planning on competing maybe later on in the year at that point. But I think a little bit before the media test or the media day at Donington, I was there testing and we were like, okay, we'll jump in for maybe like the last 2 rounds or the last 3 rounds. And then we arrive at media day and the test went
That's went
pretty
pretty
well.
well.
I was close to the pace and I was like, it's good progress, so maybe I'll just jump in and see. Like I'm still like with other cars when it came to like pace and stuff. So I'm like, I'll jump in. I'll see how it goes maybe. And I thought about it overnight, and my Holly, who's my teammate and GB4, her dad was kind of the main convincer for me to join. He was like, you might as well do it. And the night before, I told them I was going to do it. Like I just like, and then I had to like do all the media stuff that went with it. And they were like, we have to get this out in like 3 hours. But it was literally the night before I decided to race at Donington. So I was completely unprepared. I didn't have like any extra like fireproofs or anything. Like it was so last minute. And I think it was a pretty good weekend considering how unprepared I was for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was there at the Donington round. I live down the road from Donington, so I always come to watch when GB4 comes to Donington. And yeah, I mean, how was that experience? Like, obviously, you made that decision so last minute. You jumped into the car that weekend. Do you think it like helped in a way because it didn't give you too much time to kind of overthink it? You just kind of had to go into it.
Yeah, and I think that's my main process. Like that was like what Holly's dad convinced me of doing. He's like, if you go to like, and Holly herself even told me that she's like, if you go to Silverstone and decide to race, everyone's gonna have like at least a weekend in the series ahead of you. And you're gonna be so nervous going into Silverstone because not only are you racing a car for the first time on a race weekend, it's at Silverstone. And there's going to be so much going on. There's going to be so many people there. If you do it at Donington, like you'll get all the nerves and everything will get out of my system, and then I can just take Silverstone as another race weekend. So it definitely helped. I don't think I was prepared enough to become nervous. Like for Silverstone, I was nervous, so nervous leading up to it. I was like second guessing everything I did. But for Donington, it just felt like almost like another test session each time I would go out because that's how unprepared I was for it. And I think that helped me in the end because I wasn't so focused on like doing my best. I was just focused on learning.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you kind of feel like obviously approaching Donington, doing the three races there versus approaching Silverstone and doing the three races there, reflecting on kind of how they both went for you, how would you kind of summarize both of them? Obviously, I know you said Donington was a bit more, you treated it a bit more like a test, and Silverstone was, I guess, a little bit more like the first round for you mentally. But looking back, how do you kind of feel about your performance in both rounds? And is there anything that kind of stands out to you as something you're going to take forward, kind of to the rest of the season, I guess, from either of those rounds?
Yeah, definitely. I think Donington was overall a better weekend for me, which is quite weird because it was the weekend I was less prepared for. But I think then like it really gave me a feel of like I need to trust myself more, if that makes sense. Because I know I'm good enough in the car. I just need to trust myself and then I'll be able to push the car more, if that makes sense, and have trust in the car more if I trust myself more. Silverstone was a really, really hard week for me. It was really difficult for me. I was ill the whole week to start off with, so it was already terrible. And then I had a foot injury, which doesn't help when you're braking at 150 miles an hour at Silverstone. Does not help when your left foot is not there, fully there. I had a back issue as well. It was a terrible weekend for me, but I think it really put into, I guess, test how much like it's a mental sport as well. Because I feel like everyone talks about the physical aspects, and that's something I struggled with at Silverstone as well. Like a 15-year-old boy can, and it is the truth, a 15-year-old boy can jump in the car and be more okay than I can. And that's the sad truth is that I have to work so much harder just to get to like the bare minimum to drag the car around the circuit. So that's something that I'm going to take into consideration, like really physically and mentally being prepared for a race weekend because it's so mental. And then that also plays a factor into your how physical you can be during the weekend if you're not mentally there. So yeah, definitely getting mentally and physically stronger and being more on top of it, like my first session of the weekend.
You spoke about your teammate Holly a couple of questions ago, and then obviously speaking about kind of your experiences as a female driver. What's it like having a female teammate alongside you? Can obviously like very much understand your perspective, any struggles that you're having, any challenges you're facing better than say a male teammate would be able to, because I guess you've probably got a lot of shared experiences, you and Holly, that you relate to each other a lot on.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know how it is for Holly. I mean, I've only known her for like 3 months and we like only see each other like on track. But I'm definitely a lot more comfortable than with her than I think I would be with a male teammate just in general. Like I think we're able to work well together as a team, and I think everything just flows kind of quite nicely. But I do know that like if anyone like she's really funny. So that's like probably the only thing I've like really gotten to know about her is that she's quite funny. But yeah, we can just be comfortable with each other, and it seems almost like a I don't have to worry about like putting up almost like a persona or something. Like I know she'll understand like if we're both struggling on a day, like I don't feel like we have to hide that even like around each other, even if we're not like acknowledging each other. It's kind of it's quite nice to just be able to express your emotions and stuff around people that you feel like automatically comfortable with. So that's quite nice.
That is
But
really
yeah.
nice. And I wanted to ask about the rest of the team as well. Obviously, I feel like Fox Motorsport has quite a strong track record in GB4. I was wondering what it's like to kind of join the team for your debut season and kind of what your experiences have been like working with the team so far. Obviously, teammate relationship seems really positive. Is it the same with the rest of the team as well?
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely adore that team. Like I like the second I did the first test day, which was a wet Snetterton in December, I was like my parents were like, this is the team. Like if we're doing GB4, we're doing it with this team. And we just like automatically like we loved everyone there. We love all the mechanics. Everyone is so friendly and so like supportive and nice. And it just feels like a family. And I think that's really what I needed going into my first season of racing in general, because it is really my first season doing a full race season in anything, like karts or cars. So to have that support from a team that like I know will help me and I know has faith in me and is willing to like go through the struggles with me, even though they know it's going to be hard. Like especially at the beginning of the season, it's going to be really, really hard going from because I know I've gone from practically no experience. I didn't do any sim work or anything, so I've literally gone straight into the deep end. And to have a team that I know really supports me and cares about like my development and is willing to be through like thick and thin with me is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely. I know we've spoken about Donington, we've spoken about Silverstone. You mentioned that you've driven Snetterton in the rain, classic UK. Um,
Mhm.
are there any other tracks firstly, are there any other tracks you've driven in the UK beyond those three? And secondly, what has kind of your experience been of UK circuits in general? Like, do you enjoy driving them? Have you had any kind of tracks that have particularly stood out as favorites to you? Or even just any looking forward to the rest of the season, any tracks that you're particularly looking forward to driving on that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, so I've been on all the circuits that we go to in GB4. Yeah, but I've never driven on a circuit outside of like the GB like outside of the GB4 calendar even. Like I haven't gone to like Thruxton or anything. Like I've not gone to any of those circuits. So I've only gone to the ones we've raced at. And I think I probably have the least amount of testing days, at least in a car in general, of course, but out of the grid. So it's been playing catch up with everyone. But I would say my favorite circuit, and this is quite unpopular, I feel, but I love Oulton Park. I've been on it twice, once in the rain. I didn't go there for the official test, which I would have loved to, but I've had like one like general test day, which we had a bunch of caterhams, which are quite annoying, but I had to maneuver my way around them. But I had one day in the dry there and then one day in the wet, and it was my third ever test day in a car. So at Oulton Park, which definitely was not, I didn't crash, I didn't hit anything, so I considered it a pretty successful day, but that's probably like my standout track. It's probably tied with Silverstone, honestly.
Mm.
I think I prefer to race on Silverstone because Oldland does not seem like a fun track to. I know we're going there next, but it does not seem like a fun track to race on. But to test on, it's definitely like my favorite.
I feel like Alton's a really special one, and I'm so glad that GB4 is still going to Alton Park because GB3 isn't anymore, which I think is a real shame. But I remember hearing, I think it was Luke Browning after he won the Macau Grand Prix, he was saying like, nothing trains you better to drive a windy street circuit like Macau than Alton Park in the rain in the UK. And it's like, it's so true.
Yeah, it's an incredible circuit, especially the one that we race on. I think it's so fun. Like Island Bend is insane. Like I haven't taken it flat yet because I'm terrified, honestly. But when I take it flat during the race weekend, I know it's going to be incredible. It's such an incredible circuit.
That's amazing. We've kind of covered your transition from karting to racing, but I was kind of curious, what do you think has been kind of the biggest thing you've learned from the experience of going from those 4 rounds of karting in the Jamie Chadwick series to doing 2 rounds of GB4 now?
Um, Honestly, I don't know. I think it's quite an odd one, but maybe like management of like myself and my time and like just how I put like my entire schedule together. I think it's helped with obviously I just turned 18, so I'm getting ready to like be living on my own within the next year and doing a bunch of stuff. And it's definitely given me like I think a boost in my maturity, which I think was kind of already there, but definitely like a you're like it's getting real. Like I have to be kind of serious about like my career and I actually have to like do stuff for people and like answer emails and stuff. So I think just like maturing, I think it's helped me kind of mature and figure out who I am as well and sort of
Yeah,
my limits and what I can do and yeah.
that's really cool. I feel like, obviously, I feel like now people are understanding more and more how many sacrifices drivers have to make, especially when they, you know, want to race in Europe, but they're not from Europe. And obviously, I know you were born in the US and you moved to the UK. What was kind of that experience like of leaving the US, which was obviously your home country, and coming to the UK? Did you move to the UK purely to pursue racing? Was that like the core goal of you coming to the UK in the first place?
I get asked this question all the time, but no, I never actually started racing until I moved to the UK. So it's quite interesting, but I had moved here when I was 14. So I lived in the same town for 14 years and then I moved in the middle of the pandemic. So it was quite hard for like it was 2021, like early 2021, and I moved here when I was 14. So it was such a huge jump for me, and I think racing kind of helped me, especially throughout like even like watching racing when it was on during the pandemic really helped me. Especially I kind of fell back in love with it because it kind of left my mind for a few years, like probably around like 2017 to 2019. I didn't really think about it that much. But then 2020 happened and I started getting back into it and started enjoying it more. And yeah, I think that really helped me. And then I was like, I'm in the UK. It's I think arguably the best place for junior racing in the world. So if I'm gonna make it happen, I have to make it happen now because I'm aging up, but and I have to do it here. So yeah.
Do you think you would have started racing if you'd stayed in the US? Do you think that kind of same moment would have happened and you would have ended up karting there? Or do you think it truly was being in the UK that made you actually go, okay, like, let's do it now?
I think mainly being in the UK, and I've said this before, like my parents wanted, like I wanted to pursue karting when I was a lot younger, but where I lived in the States, obviously it's huge. And I think the nearest go-kart track was about 3 hours away. And not only, I feel like people only think that karting is just money, but the amount of time that goes into like karting, especially when you're like 6 to 8, when everyone's doing it. Like I know I have friends who are owner karting who are doing it like 3 days a week. And even though I'm graduated, like almost graduated, I can't do karting 3 days a week. So it's like the amount of time that goes into it is just something my parents didn't really have, and that was the main reason why we couldn't get into it. So I honestly think that if I had stayed in the US, I wouldn't be racing, which is quite sad to think about, but I think it's worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, definitely. And you spoke about kind of graduating and stuff. I was going to ask about the education side because I think so many people forget that a lot of drivers who are in either GB4 or GB3 or kind of series that are at similar levels are still, as you said, you're 18, like there's drivers who are still very young competing in these series and they are balancing doing education and exams and everything alongside their racing. So how have you kind of found that and what has your experience been of it?
So luckily, I finished my last week of school last week, so I don't have to worry about it anymore for the near future at least. But when I was like testing, especially like in February, which is when I think I did most of my testing for the season, when it was wet as well. But it was really, really difficult because I mean, the school I go to, I go 5 days a week because it's like an American school. So I go 5 days a week. I have a bunch of like I do film, or I did film, and I did like acting and stuff, which doesn't seem like it would take that much time because obviously I'm not sitting and studying, but the amount of like prep work that goes into like filmmaking outside of school, it's like a whole other job. So trying to balance like recording and everything like that, and then also practicing for like my upcoming tests or like preparing. It was really, really, really difficult for the 3 months I did it. I don't know how people are doing it for like 5 years when they're like 15, but I like it's crazy, but it was definitely super, super difficult. And there are times when I'm like, I have to like almost pick one, but I was so close to graduating. I was like, I mean, I can't give up now. I've been working towards my diploma for 4 years. So I just had to kind of push through it, but it was really, really difficult at the time. And I think again, plays into the mental like strength that you have to have in the sport, juggling so many different things at such like a young age was quite difficult, but I made it through and I'm done now, so I don't have to worry about it. Quite happy about that.
I'm not surprised. That must be nice just knowing that chapter's closed and now you can kind of give your full energy to what you're doing now. And
Yeah.
what advice would you kind of give other drivers who are maybe not at the stage you're at yet, who are still kind of going through that balance, whether it's like, I guess like the education, motorsport balance, but also just balancing anything with motorsport? Because I feel like it's people are like, I think people are, as I said, are becoming more aware, but there are so many sacrifices you have to make and there's so many things that kind of end up getting pushed to one side, I think, because of motorsport. What kind of advice would you give other drivers who are maybe a little younger than you, who are still kind of figuring out that balance?
Honestly, I would say balance. Like balance is like the most important. Balancing your life outside of racing, I think, is important. Like for me, I don't like to stay near the track because I just like after like a day of testing before the race week and I need a break. I need to, and I think that's so important to not throw your whole entire life into motorsports. And although like obviously people should be super passionate and I'm super passionate about it, it's really important for me at least to have other interests outside of racing. That way, when it does get hard and when it does, like, I have other things to fall back on. And honestly, just balance is important. School is important, unfortunately. So just trying to make sure that you have a good balance and you're able to manage your time and everything while still doing everything, I think is really important. I think you learn that with age. But I think being in motorsports gives you such a good understanding on how to manage your time because you're doing so much for your career. Like you have a career. The 15-year-olds racing in GB4 are working towards like a motorsport racing career. So it's like you have to balance so much because you know it's gonna like in the end be all for your future. So I think yeah, just balance. You have to make sure that you have a life outside of racing and that you do other things and you're interested in other things because at some point it is going to be too much. So making sure that you have other things to like fall back on is quite nice. Yeah. And I would really appreciate if someone would have told me that when I started racing to not throw my full focus into it because it would stress me out. But yeah.
Now when you're kind of obviously, as you said, like now you've kind of got that balance a little bit more in place than you maybe did when you first started motorsport, what do you kind of think are the main things that help you de-stress when you're away from the track or help you maintain that good kind of mental energy going into racing? Is there anything that you kind of put your energy into outside of the track that you think really benefits your performance and your results when you are on the track?
Um, Honestly, like I quite enjoy music. I've been playing like the viola for like, I don't know, it's been, I don't want to say it because it's gonna make me seem old to anyone younger than me watching this, but for a long time. So music is definitely like I guess my main form of like decompression, like making music and stuff and composing like short songs. But also like I'm quite into video games as well. I think that's like the best decompressor, just sitting alone in your room, just like doing kind of nothing that matters, but sometimes you kind of need that. What else? I love the gym as well, and obviously that helps with racing as well, so it's kind of like a two for one. I crochet. So that's probably another one. Holly asked me about that because I don't think she knew what it was when we like got asked for an interview. But yeah, I crochet. I have like my yarn somewhere behind me, but so I crochet like little like clothes for myself as well. So that's probably like my main thing. I always bring that on the race weekends as well, so I can crochet afterwards.
I love that. I think it's so nice to find out what drivers like to do when they're not driving, if that makes sense. Because I feel like people sometimes forget that like
Yeah.
everyone's human and like you do have a life outside of of the racing.
We
And
do
I think
different things.
it's always really interesting to hear. But this next question is about racing again, sorry. I was gonna ask, obviously with GB4, there's obviously always, not always, I say always, only been going for like a couple of years now, this initiative, but the prize that the top female driver gets each season. What's it kind of like having that incentive in place, knowing it's there, balancing that with the fact that obviously you're aware that you're a rookie, it's your first season, focusing on your kind of own development and your own journey, I guess, versus kind of trying to get the results, trying to focus on the championship, as well as that incentive being in place? Like, is it a lot of pressure kind of balancing all of those things?
Not for me, because I'm kind of not worried about that. I'm kind of taking each season and each race as it is, if that makes sense. So my main goal is to just get better and be higher up the grid each race weekend. I mean, obviously, if I were to win it, which I don't think I am, but if I were to win it, I think it would be incredible. And I think it definitely is in the back of my mind. Like I do need to push to be up there at some point. But right now I'm just worried about each time I go out to do better than like what I came off doing last race weekend. So right now I'm just kind of learning. It's all learning right now. And wherever I can be on the grid is like I want to be as high as possible. And I tell my driver coach this all the time because I'll come off like pissed off a little bit after like a session. I'll be like, oh, I should have been doing better. I should have been doing better. And he looks at me and he's like, you're never happy. And I'm like, I think I'll only be happy if I'm leading in 30 seconds up the field, which obviously isn't going to happen in GB4. But
Oh,
but that's kind of my motivation is that I don't not only want to be the top female, but I want to be the top in general. So yeah, that's kind of where my mind is always at.
yeah, being 30 seconds up the road in GB4 would be
Probably
a
not
hell
gonna
of an
happen.
achievement. That would be like, yeah, never seen that happen
Crazy,
before.
yeah.
In terms of kind of like your long term, I say long term, like if you're looking to like the next few years, do you kind of see yourself doing a few years of GB4 and like building up your kind of experience, or do you see it as kind of like more of a stepping stone to looking to something else, or are you still kind of figuring that out at the moment?
I think I'm still at such like an early part in my racing journey that like I can kind of afford to like do anything, if that makes sense. Like obviously single seaters is kind of the dream for everyone, but obviously it's expensive. It's probably like one of the most expensive forms of racing in general. So, I mean, my main goal is to stick with single seaters as long as possible. Maybe do a few years in GB4 or just F4 in general. I'd love to do some racing over in the States as well. Obviously, my home, I would love to do like a little bit of the road to Indy ladder, but I think my main goal, I would be happy if I could race in like a top level like GT or endurance championship. That's kind of like my main goal is to get up there. And I'm kind of just using GB4 and single seater racing as like a little bit of a stepping stone for that. But right now, again, focused on GB4, focused on being the best I can in GB4 right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think if you ever got the opportunity to do F1 Academy or down the line, I don't know, any series, obviously F1 Academy is the one that exists at the moment, but any series that kind of is all like an all-female series, do you think you would take that opportunity, or would you prefer to stay doing championships that are mixed like you are doing right now?
I guess it depends on how ready I am for it. I think obviously it's such a good place to get noticed by like sponsors and by teams in general. I think where I currently am right now, I don't think I would be ready for it. So I think I would want to wait a bit until I can be really competitive in it because I think that shows the best drivers who are really competitive in it, and that gives you the best opportunity to get to do stuff outside of F1 Academy. So I would do it, yeah, but I think I would have to be ready for it and I would have to be fighting within like the top five when I get up there to be doing it. But yeah, I would love to do it. If they offered me to do it, I would 100% do it.
It's such a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think there's a 2 year like cap on how many years you can do it for. So it's not like, a series like GB4 where you like if you wanted to, you could do more than that. I guess it
Yeah.
puts a bit more pressure on.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're ready for it. You're ready to go into it and not having to play catch up because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm playing catch up to everyone on the grid because they all have so much experience compared to me that I'm just trying to learn from them. And I think learning from them and getting the experience from them who've been doing it for so long. And I mean, the GB4 grid is so competitive this year. It's so experienced. So the fact that like at Donington especially, I was quite surprised with how close I was to the pace, considering that, I had only been on the circuit like a few times, which is arguably my most tested at circuit, but still going into a race weekend for the first time, like racing a car for the first time, it was probably like I don't know, I think it was my 10th day in the car when I did the race weekend, which is in the grand scheme of things sounds like a lot, but it's not when you consider like how much testing a lot of people put into it and sim and everything, and I didn't really do that. So yeah. Sorry, what was the question again? I kind of forgot.
I can't remember either, but that was super interesting. I was just listening to
I
what
got
you were
like so
saying.
caught up.
That's okay. Speaking of kind of obviously you said the GB4 grid is so experienced this year. It's also so big. I think this is the biggest GB4 grid there's been ever. I remember when I first started watching the championship, there was like maybe like 10 to 12 cars in it on a
Yeah,
good weekend, and now it's over double that.
I see
Um,
that. Yeah.
it's crazy. What do you kind of think has drawn so many people to start competing in GB4? For you specifically, I mean, like what do you think kind of pulled you to GB4 as a series in particular? Because obviously in the UK, for any listeners who aren't from the UK, we've got British F4 as well as GB4, kind of two F4 series.
Yeah, I honestly think obviously like the introduction of the new car seems to be like such a big like I think the grid is what like 10 more cars than there were last year, a little bit more than that. So basically again like double the grid. So I think the new car has definitely brought a lot of returning drivers and also new drivers into it, as well as the fact that I think obviously it's not as expensive as British F4, but it still like offers quite like nice, I guess, prizes for the winners. So there's still that initiative to do really well in it. Also feeder series to GB3, I think as well, because obviously people racing in GB3 also go on to do like FRECA and like F3 and F2. So I think that initiative is also like what's kind of brought people in. Yeah, I would also say it's just I really enjoy racing in the series. I've never tested a British F4 car, done anything with British F4, but from what I've seen, it seems like quite not like it seems quite peaceful compared to that. Like it seems quite, I don't know, like a little bit toned down, but you still get the same level of like competitiveness that's in like a larger grid like British F4. And I think because we hit all the tracks, like all the really premier tracks in the UK as well, we go to Silverstone twice, we go to Donington twice. I think that's also quite important because like Silverstone is obviously like the premier track, but we also go to Oulton and Brands, which are also incredible tracks in their own right. So I think the fact that we go to all these amazing tracks as well is what brings people into the series.
Absolutely. And as you said, with GB3 as well, kind of it feeding directly to that. And I think even in the past couple of years, like I've noticed so many more drivers make the step up from GB3 going into, as you said, like FRECA, FIA F3, like all of those kind of European series that, I mean, even GB3 itself goes to so many European tracks now. I think there's
Yeah.
almost as many European ones as there are British ones, which is quite
Yeah.
funny when it's called GB3. But does GB3 tempt you as a championship because of that kind of opportunity to race? I think they've got like Monza, Spa, tracks like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I'm kind of cool with racing and whatever. Like whatever I have the budget to race in and whatever I am given the opportunity to race in, I think I'll be fine racing in it. It would definitely be such a huge jump. I don't know if I could go from rental karting straight into GB3 after a year in GB4, just strength wise. But yeah, the car looks amazing this year. It looks great. Obviously I haven't driven one before, but from what I've heard, I think people are saying it's quite nice as well to drive. So definitely the new cars. Again, I think is the GB3 grid bigger than what it has been? Or is it around the same? I think it
I
might be, but it's definitely seemed to have like brought a lot more attention to the series as well with the new car. So I think again that's such a huge thing. But yeah, again, I would love to race in anything really.
I love that. This is going to be my last question. And I always like to just kind of end on like a look ahead to the rest of the year and just like, what are you most looking forward to about the rest of 2025? Like any moments that kind of stand out to you that you're really excited for, whether it's a track that you're looking forward to racing at, or whether it's something just like completely outside of racing, just like what does 2025 hold for you for the rest of the year?
I don't know. That's quite like, I don't know. I'm doing a lot of stuff this year, like with kind of everything with racing, basically. I'm moving out of London, like to go, like, I don't even know where I'm going, but I'm moving to hopefully be on my own unless my mom is attached to my hip. But adding that big step as well, like sort of not moving, like moving out of my parents' house and like not fully living with them the whole time is going to be such a new experience for me. And I think growing as like a young adult as well, while trying to balance like this huge career that has like so many eyes are on you and so many people are watching what you're doing, and it's very selective. So you know that every single time you go on track, you have to make it count. So I guess maturing again is going to be a huge thing for me this year. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing like where I started in GB4 and where I end, not only as a racer, but like as a person in general, and how I manage myself and my time and everything.
That's great. Well, best of luck with the rest of the season. I'll be at the next Donington round, which I'm aware is about as
Oh,
far
yeah.
away as it possibly could be. Yeah, they love to space the Donington rounds out quite a lot, but it gives me something to look forward to later in the year. So I'll be there. So hopefully see you there. Before we go, do you just want to plug your social medias, etc., so people can give you a follow, check out what you're up to?
Yeah. So my Instagram is just Caitlyn_McDaniel. And that's kind of it. I'm honestly not like, this is quite like, I probably should get more better at social media, but I'm honestly not that into social media. So I need to get better at it. But yeah, just Caitlyn McDaniel at Caitlyn McDaniel on Instagram is kind of it.
Love that. I'm also mainly only on Instagram, so don't worry. It's my favorite one. None of the others compare. Instagram is elite.
Yeah.
That'll be tagged in the description as well if anyone wants to go and give Caitlin a follow. Thanks so much again for coming on Down to the Tide today, and best of luck for the rest of the season.